Everyone knows that I am jealous. When the marquis mentioned that he wanted to take the dancer as a concubine, the woman was poisoned by me the next day. Because of this, the marquis divorced me, and my natal family also drove me out. Homeless and destitute, I had no choice but to beg on the streets, fighting with beggars for slop water. It wasn't until the marquis, whom I deeply loved, stabbed a knife into my chest that I woke up. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back on the day when the dancer performed. I want to take Bai Lu as a concubine. Her status as a concubine is too low. Would the marquis be satisfied if she were raised to the position of a co-wife? But this time, the marquis crushed the wine cup because of my words. On the Mid-Autumn Festival feast of the Marquisate, the marquis took a fancy to the dancer Bai Lu among the performing girls. With her peach-like eyes and black hair, and her slender waist, every movement she made was captivating. He didn't even wait for the dance to finish before dismissing all the other dancers and keeping only Bai Lu. "What is your name?" "I am Bai Lu." The marquis didn't ask anything further, just glanced at me. "Stone, prepare the Wutong Pavilion for Miss Bai." Stone didn't dare to look at me, and hurried away after acknowledging the marquis' order. The Wutong Pavilion was a courtyard specifically prepared for concubines in the Marquisate. It had been vacant all these years since the marquis and I got married. It wasn't because the marquis only loved me as his wife, but because all the beautiful concubines the marquis took a fancy to had mysteriously disappeared. That's right, it was my doing as the marquisate's wife. Stone, who had been with the marquis since childhood, knew his temperament best. This time, the marquis had settled Bai Lu in the Wutong Pavilion without informing me, which must be different from the previous times. Everyone in the Marquisate knew that I loved the marquis the most. At my coming-of-age ceremony, I had fallen for the marquis at first sight. I declared to the world that I would marry no one but the marquis. When I accidentally learned that the marquis liked archery, I chased after him with fruits, wanting to be his live target. Since the marquis was good at using knives, I searched all over the world for rare materials and personally polished and forged for several months to create a peerless blade for him. When the marquis went to the pleasure quarters for a drink, I would disguise myself as a man to serve him wine. Even to help the marquis chase a wild horse, I missed the time to see my mother's doctor and failed to see my mother for the last time. Everyone said that the Prime Minister's daughter was just the marquis' shadow, caring so much for him that she neglected her own mother's life. In the marquis' heart, I was also a shadow that would never leave him. So in my impression, whenever the marquis saw me, he usually had a cold face. He always acted with impunity. No matter how cold and excessive he was to me, I would sulk secretly and then quickly turn around to forgive him and return to his side. The only time I saw the marquis' tenderness was because of that knife. It was clear that the marquis really liked that knife. But just now, that knife stabbed into my chest without hesitation. It was very cold as the marquis looked at me, as cold as my mother's hand after her death. If it weren't for the fortunate rebirth, I'm afraid I would still be obsessed with getting the marquis love. I only regret that if the day of rebirth could be earlier, could I have saved my mother? If I hadn't gone out of the city to chase that wild horse that day, I would have been able to invite the best doctor for my mother. My mother would have been free from illness and pain, accompanying me until old age. But God will not satisfy all of a person's greed. So in this life, after the pain has subsided, I have come to my senses. Marquis, you be your debonair marquis with beautiful concubines in your arms. I will be my wealthy and idle person, and we will not disturb each other. Marquis, the Wutong Pavilion is remote. Let Miss Bai live in the Qiushui Pavilion, which is closest to the marquis' study. The Qiushui Pavilion is one of the top courtyards in the Marquisate, adjacent to the marquis' study. According to the specifications, it should be prepared for the marquisate's wife. It is much more magnificent than the Lanue Pavilion where I live. My entry into the Marquisate was not voluntary on the marquis' part, but an imperial marriage decree. The marquis had no choice but to accept the decree and marry me. When I first entered the Marquisate, the marquis was indignant and directly settled me in the most remote Lanue Pavilion. It's not that the marquis had someone else in his heart. But the marquis was by nature a free-spirited and wandering person, pursuing freedom. He didn't like my arrogance and, as a marquis, he also had to submit to the imperial power and marry someone unrelated. In the previous life, I was infatuated with the marquis and always put him first, so I never really cared about those things. Thinking that as long as I married into the marquisate in this life, I would be the happiest person. When the marquis heard me say this, he suddenly looked up, his eyes full of shock. In just an instant, he sneered with disdain. Although I didn't care about those things at that time, in the following days I would occasionally mention to the marquis that I wanted to move to the Cherchouet pavilion to serve him day and night. Summon someone to settle Miss By in the Cherchouet pavilion. After hearing this, I gracefully bowed. The marquis hand holding the wine cup bulged with veins. Bang! The wine cup was fiercely smashed at my feet, the shards splashing and cutting my skirt. The spring night is short, Marquis, don't miss the moment. After saying this, I walked away without looking back. The marquis is really unpredictable. In the previous life, whenever I restricted him from taking concubines, he would always get angry and smash cups. In this life, I am accommodating to his wishes, but he still smashes cups. The expense of cups in the marquisate alone is probably equivalent to the monthly food cost of an ordinary family. Before I could reach the Lanyu pavilion, I heard Hu Tao muttering behind me. "Madam, don't be angry, madam, don't ruin your health." I was tired of hearing it. I'm not angry. Why should I be angry? Why would I waste this chance of rebirth by getting angry with a fool? Since the marquis and I have no feelings for each other, it's better to part ways and not hinder each other's future. Before I could sort out my thoughts, Hu Tao interrupted me again and again. I am your dowry maid, who has followed you for more than 10 years. Seeing you walking without saying a word, I know you must be angry. Looking at Hu Tao's expression as if she knew me best, I was speechless. Let's hurry back to the Lanyu pavilion, I have something to tell you. Hu Tao, close the door. In the previous life, I took advantage of the marquis inattention and poisoned Bai Lu. Because of this, my reputation was ruined, and my prestige in the capital plummeted. Everyone said that the marquis's wife was a heartless and jealous person, not favored, and couldn't tolerate a concubine who hadn't even entered the door. I was the legitimate daughter of the Prime Minister, but not the most favored daughter of the Prime Minister's family. Later, with the reputation of being jealous and murderous, my father, who favored his concubines over his wife, directly drove me out and announced to the whole city that the Jiang family had no daughter like me, cutting off all relations and drawing a clear line. As a result, I had no natal family to return to, and when I left the marquisate, I was penniless. I could only lie at the entrance of the tavern, waiting to fight with beggars and vagrants for the slop water that was thrown out. In this life, if one doesn't act for oneself, heaven will destroy him. It seems that it is absolutely necessary to earn some money to have by one's side. Previously, as the head of the marquisate and backed by the Prime Minister's family, I was definitely a prominent noble in the capital. Who would have thought that there would be a day when I would fall to the streets and fight with beggars for food? I shook my head looking at the silver bills and jewelry in the cabinet. What did I do in the previous life? All the decent shops and good land were squandered, and there were only a few silver bills left, with monthly expenses coming from the marquis's account. The property that truly remained in my hands was very little, and the dowry could not be touched. The small treasury was as thin as a newly broken cocoon. Fortunately, there were still a few gold hairpins and jade bracelets that could be pawned for some money. Little Hu Tao, go pawn these and bring back some money. I turned everything in the dressing box upside down, selected for a while, and finally only kept a jade hairpin. No matter what happens next, money is indispensable. Hu Tao took a deep breath, her face full of surprise. Madam, what did you say? I said to pawn these and get money. These were all given by the marquis, and you have always treasured them as if they were precious. I looked at Hu Tao seriously and earnestly. Little Hu Tao, this time your young lady will not do anything foolish. What kind of marquis is he, who is not worthy of your young lady me? Ever since my young lady fell in love with the marquis, Hu Tao has been very cautious and careful. After I married into the marquisate, I only focused on buying for favor, and all the affairs of the marquisate were handed over to Hu Tao. The little girl, though young, was as steady and capable as an old woman, which was really difficult for Hu Tao. Hu Tao cried and hugged me, as if she had taken off the heaviest burden on her shoulders. "Madam, that's really great, that's really great." I waved my hand towards the once most precious red hairpin and hairpin in front of me. "All these are just for show, pawn them quickly." I imitated the tone in the opera and sang loudly, which made Hu Tao laugh so hard that she held her stomach. By some strange coincidence, the marquis, who should have taken a shortcut directly to the Qiushui pavilion, happened to take a big detour and came to the front of the Lanue pavilion. As soon as he pushed the door, the laughter of Hu Tao and me came in waves. The marquis was already in a very bad mood, and hearing the laughter made his face even colder. I also saw him and immediately stopped laughing. "Stone, go back to the study." Stone looked at me and then at the marquis. "Marquis, Miss Bailu is still waiting for you in the Qiushui pavilion. Go back to the study." I rarely saw the marquis get so angry. The last time he got angry was probably because I dealt with a concubine. Why was he still so angry this time when I was reasonable and did not harm Miss Bailu, and even let her live in the best Qiushui pavilion? But it has nothing to do with me. The shadow of him killing me still tightly entangles me. Hu Tao is really good at managing money. In less than half a day, my jewelry and hairpins were turned into a thick stack of silver bills on the table in my room. "Madam, I heard from the marquis servant that the marquis slept in the study last night and did not go to the Qiushui pavilion." Hu Tao did not dare to look directly into my eyes, for fear that some word would touch my sore spot again. In the previous life, I would have gone crazy to eliminate all obstacles between me and the marquis. "Who cares, Hu Tao, from now on you will be with your young lady, and we will do something more meaningful. As for the marquis, I will find a way to divorce him sooner or later. He can do whatever he wants, and I will not care." Hu Tao knelt in front of me with a dazed look, tears streaming down from the corners of her eyes. "Young lady, you have finally become yourself again. No matter what your young lady wants to do or where you want to go, Hu Tao will be with you." I smiled and helped Hu Tao up, touching her shoulder, just about to speak. "Madam, your natal family is in the main hall, and the marquis has asked you to go and have a chat." Hearing this, I was stunned. In the previous life, my father also came to the marquisate to cut off all relations with me, blocking my way back to my natal family. This time, I didn't poison Bailu, nor did I spread the reputation of being jealous. What does my muddled father want to do? I hurried to the main hall and was surprised to see not only my father, but also my uncle and that arrogant concubine. Although my uncle's official position was not high, he was the most prestigious person in the family. Since my uncle appeared in the marquisate, it seemed that today's matter could not be settled peacefully. "Jiang Yun, you really have the nerve." Before I could step into the door, my father's loud voice came out. "Our Jiang family ranks as the prime minister, with a family of pure scholars. For generations, the Jiang family has never shared a roof with prostitutes. What have you done? You have consorted with a prostitute under the same roof. Our Jiang family has no daughter like you." Today, with my elder brother here as a witness, Jiang Yun is expelled from the Jiang family and removed from the family register. It turned out to be still about Bailu. She had just moved into the marquisate for one day, and the news had already reached the prime minister's residence. There must be some reason behind it. The marquisate had strict rules and regulations. The servants and followers were all old hands who had worked for decades. They would not betray the marquisate. Perhaps it was Bailu. My tragedy in the previous life was caused by Bailu, and although the reason was different this time, I was still expelled from the Jiang family after all the twists and turns. Reborn in this life, being expelled from the family still did not change. But this time I will never become a beggar and be humiliated by everyone again. What a good expulsion from the family register. A father who favors concubines over his wife and values reputation more than family bonds, a favored concubine with a venomous heart, and now an uncle who is easily manipulated by others. What is there to linger for in such a Jiang family? Even so, my fate with the Jiang family has come to an end. Prime Minister Jiang, please go back. The hall was deathly silent, and I heard my father gasp. The marquis sat there with a playful expression, picked up his wine cup, skimmed off the floating tea leaves, and took a sip. Father-in-law, please calm down. There are no prostitutes in my marquisate. My wife and I respect each other and our love remains unchanged. How could there be a third person in this house? I glanced at the marquis. It seemed that he still did not want to lose a prime minister father-in-law just for a mere dancing girl. The marquis clearly took a dancing girl into the house yesterday. Sir. Before my father could finish his sentence, Auntie Yu, who was standing beside him, quickly stopped him. Father-in-law, you really know my marquisate well. Realizing he had misspoken, my father hurriedly covered up by adjusting his clothes. Since my son-in-law and my daughter are so affectionate, I won't disturb you any further. I'll take my leave. With that, before the marquis and I could react, the three of them quickly left. The marquis looked at me, and I bowed respectfully. Thank you. No wonder the marquis spoke up for me in front of everyone. It was the first time he had ever done so. I was about to turn and leave when the marquis said coldly, I know you are angry with me. If it were before, I would definitely be angry with you. But not now. My tone was calm and I did not look up. The marquis clenched and then unclenched his fist. Jiang Yun, your angry words are meaningless. I had liked the marquis for more than 10 years, but now I seem to have changed into a completely different person, cold and distant. This sudden change made him frown unconsciously. There is nothing else, I will leave first. How can there be nothing else? Without waiting for my reaction, the marquis directly grabbed my arm and pulled me onto the horse. He and I rode on the horse, with him holding me from behind. This was a scene I had never dared to dream of in my previous life. In the previous life, when my father came to the marquisate to cut off all relations with me, the marquis was furious because of the matter of Bai Lu. I don't know whether it was because he was heartbroken that Bai Lu was killed by me, this venomous woman, or because I had acted without consulting his feelings. The marquis took the opportunity to send me a divorce decree, driving me out of the marquisate. I eventually suffered all kinds of humiliations and died under the knife. Finally, the marquis stopped the horse in front of the prime minister's residence. The marquis pulled me straight into the main hall. My father and Auntie Yu had just entered the marquisate and hadn't even had a sip of tea when a servant reported, the marquis has pulled the young lady in. My father had just caused trouble in the marquisate and was feeling guilty. Seeing the marquis' expression, he guessed that the marquis might be planning to send Jiang Yun back to the prime minister's residence. Father-in-law, today in my residence, you made unfounded accusations against my wife and left hastily without any explanation. Is this matter just going to be let go like this? I looked at the marquis suspiciously, not knowing why he was doing this. In the previous life, he had never set foot in the prime minister's residence. Even the return banquet that a common woman would have after marriage, the marquis despised it. As a result, he left my father and Auntie Yu with the impression that I was not favored by my husband and could be bullied at will. Now, however, he seemed to be standing up for me. Son-in-law, today's matter was my recklessness. I didn't mean to disturb. Please forgive me, both the marquis and the madam. You are my father-in-law, and I dare not make things difficult for you. However, this matter has indeed angered my wife. My father understood and turned to look at me, then at Auntie Yu. Ah, Yuner, today's matter is really a misunderstanding. My Yuner is the most reasonable and well-behaved. She will not take this misunderstanding to heart. Seeing the signal from my father, Auntie Yu waved her handkerchief and walked towards me with a fawning expression. Yes, Yuner, today's matter is my father's fault. Father apologizes to you. Seeing my father and Auntie Yu's coordinated act, I felt a wave of disgust. You two just talk casually, and the humiliation of my marquis's wife is going to be glossed over. It's really easy for you to say. Since that's the case, to appease the wife's grievances, the mother-in-law's memorial tablet should be properly enshrined according to the specifications of a principal wife. Hearing the marquis mention my mother's memorial tablet, I was taken aback and my gaze towards the marquis softened a bit. On the way back to the marquis, he led the horse while I walked beside him. "Why did you do this? Had it not been for my recklessness that day, I wouldn't have let you go after that wild horse. I also feel guilty about my mother-in-law's passing. Actually I don't dislike you, it's just..." "Marquis, there is no need to say more. It's getting late, let's hurry back to the marquis." I quickly walked back to my Lanue pavilion with Hu Tao. There were still many of my own matters to deal with. How could I have time to waste with the idle marquis? "Little Hu Tao, let's go and see the shop we like these days. Help me rent it and open a restaurant. I've already thought of a name for it, called Suyuanjai. Our restaurant will be different from ordinary taverns. We will only serve vegetarian food, but this vegetarian food must also be made delicious and refreshing. The elderly ladies in large families mostly eat vegetarian food and pray to Buddha. As they get older, their appetites may not be so good. Although there are small kitchens in their homes, they are always a bit lacking. This capital city values reputation the most, and the old ancestors in each family are naturally the most important. The shop doesn't need to be too large, just elegant and exquisite. Hire more waiters to deliver the customized meals directly to the homes of the ladies and young ladies, to save trouble. The boxes for the meals should also be chosen to be simple and dignified. As for the skill of making vegetarian food, I, your young lady, will personally teach the kitchen." When Hu Tao heard that I would personally teach cooking, her eyes lit up. When my mother was still alive, she often ate vegetarian food and prayed to Buddha, praying every day that Buddha would bless me with smooth sailing and good health. At that time, neither my mother nor I were favored. The vegetarian food sent to my mother from the kitchen looked like the leftovers from the kitchen. So I have been diligently practicing for many years, and my skill in making vegetarian food is unparalleled in the capital city. "Miss, your vegetarian food is the best. With you taking the lead this time, we will definitely make money." Hu Tao bounced away with the silver bills. In the depths of the forest next to the Lanue pavilion, two eyes were staring at Hu Tao until her figure disappeared. "The marquis, this madam seems to have changed into another person." The marquis' gaze became colder and colder. "I just want to see how long she can keep this up this time. I am not always the marquis' shadow." There was a daughter of a county magistrate who used to crowd around the marquis every day. We were in the same hall, and the marquis actually accepted the sachet from that girl in front of me. A sachet is a personal item. With just a few brief encounters, how could it be casually given and received in private? For this reason, I was really furious. I didn't go to the marquis to see the marquis the whole day. Finally, on the second day, I couldn't bear the longing in my heart and waited anxiously in front of the marquis. When I saw him get off the carriage, I became my old self again and followed behind the marquis. Later I found out. It was just a bet among the young masters of the capital city's various families at a drinking party. The bet was that Jiang Yun would forgive the marquis within a few days and continue to appear in the marquis. The bet was a batch of fine blood sweating horses, worth a fortune. In the end, the marquis won. For several months, the marquis did not see the wife's figure. No one knew where the wife had gone or what she had done. It was only known that the wife was always in a hurry and could not be seen. Until an imperial edict from the Empress Dowager was sent to the marquis. The edict came in a hurry. I had just come out of the kitchen and hurried into the palace. The Empress Dowager's personal eunuch directly led me to the Empress Dowager's chamber. The fact that I was taken directly to the chamber instead of the main hall for the first meeting probably meant that it was not a serious or urgent matter. So I gradually calmed down. As I stepped into the chamber, the scent of dragon saliva incense hit me. "Is this the lady from the marquis? I, your servant, pay my respects to Her Majesty the Empress Dowager." The Empress Dowager looked at me with a smiling face and helped me up. She led me step by step to the table. "Did you make all these dishes?" I looked at the plates and bowls in front of me, which were the latest dishes of my Suyuanjai this month. Replying to Her Majesty the Empress Dowager, "These are from my Suyuanjai." "Good. Good. Good. I have tasted the dishes you made, and I like them very much. They are more to my taste than the palace kitchen. Would you be willing to come and show your skills for me when you have time in the future?" The Empress Dowager looked at me with a loving and inquiring gaze, without any condescension or coercion. That expression looked just like my mother. I felt a wave of warmth in my heart. If the Empress Dowager likes it, I will come every day. The Empress Dowager and the eunuch beside her laughed. "Madame Jiang, I have served the Empress Dowager for many years, and I have never seen her enjoy a meal so much. It would be wonderful if you could come every day to cook for the Empress Dowager." Since then, I have been getting up early every day to enter the palace to pay my respects to the Empress Dowager, prepare food for her, and leave after serving her. I rarely saw the marquis again. Although the servants reported daily that the marquis was lingering in the pleasure quarters and getting drunk every day, no new concubines were added to the marquisate. We seemed to be two parallel lines, no longer intersecting. I was glad to save myself the trouble of entanglement with the marquis and enjoyed the peace. In my eyes, the Empress Dowager was not as majestic and solemn as people imagined. In fact, she was cheerful and amiable. The Empress Dowager said that she had held me in her arms when I was a child. As a child, I was always cheerful and full of spirit, very lovely. When I grew up, I heard that I had done so many absurd things for the marquis. She thought that this little girl had gone astray and lost interest. Until one day, the crown princess, in an attempt to cheer up the Empress Dowager, brought in the then very popular Suyuanjai from the capital city. In just a few months, Suyuanjai opened 5 branches in the east, south, west, and center of the capital. Even in the Jiangnan area, where there were many wealthy merchants, Suyuanjai restaurants appeared. When the Empress Dowager learned that Suyuanjai was booming, she had her personal eunuch investigate and found out that I was the person behind it. "This is the Jiang family's eldest girl that I like." The Empress Dowager smiled and patted my head. The smiling expression of the Empress Dowager always reminded me of my mother. When I was a child, every time I brought food to my mother, she would also look at me with a smiling face, just like the Empress Dowager at this moment. "Her Majesty the Empress Dowager, you really look like my mother." I looked up at the Empress Dowager, tears welling up in my eyes. "Yuner, then become my adopted daughter." In the 9th year of the Kangha era, the Yellow River flooded. Displaced people rushed towards the main cities like mad. The common people were homeless and there were corpses everywhere from starvation. When the civil and military officials and their families were tightening their belts and worrying about the disaster relief funds, I told the Empress Dowager that I had a way to raise the disaster relief funds and wanted to see the emperor. "You are the lady of the marquisate, Jiang Yun, right? What is your method of raising funds? Tell me." The Empress Dowager did not push me to the front court, but under the pretext of having a meal, she called the emperor to the harem. "I am willing to donate my private property, shops, and land for disaster relief. Do you know how much money is needed for disaster relief? How much money does your small marquisate have?" The person talking to your majesty here is not the wife of the marquisate, but the owner of Suyuanjai. Suyuanjai originated from the people of the world. With the Yellow River flood, the people are suffering. There are more and more beggars in the capital city. Many of them are even children of just a few years old. I am unwilling to see the people of the world homeless and unwilling to see children lose their mothers. Hearing this, the Empress Dowager thought of my mother and quickly stepped forward to hug me. "I am willing to donate the money for disaster relief, only asking that after the flood, your majesty can grant me one request." Several months later, the flood eased and the people's lives gradually returned to normal. The marquisate receives the imperial decree. The emperor's decree states that Jiang Yun of the marquisate has made contributions to disaster relief. As the Empress Dowager's adopted daughter, She stays by the Empress Dowager's side every day, gentle and virtuous, loyal and filial, fulfilling both loyalty and filial piety. She is hereby granted the title of Princess Su Yuan, an imperial decree of divorce, and an imperial plaque for Su Yuan Zhai to prosper sooner. This is the emperor's decree. The old servant congratulates the princess. After kowtowing to thank the emperor's grace and sending off the eunuch who delivered the decree, I remembered the conversation with the emperor that day. When the emperor heard that I wanted a request, he thought I wanted a noble title. After all, there is a huge difference between a noblewoman and the wife of the marquis. To his great surprise, what I wanted was a divorce from the marquis. Back in the day, I used self-harm to force the emperor to grant us marriage. Now, I have exhausted my family fortune to ask the emperor to grant me a divorce. It is truly a twist of fate. You can never wake up someone who pretends to be asleep, not to mention that this person, while pretending to be asleep, doesn't forget to turn over and punch you. The emperor finally agreed. He also granted the title of princess, probably because as the Empress Dowager's adopted daughter, it would give me some leverage if I were to remarry in the future. The imperial decree had not arrived for half a day when the marquis hurried back from outside, reeking of alcohol, with his hair in disarray and his clothes stained with a hint of rouge. It seemed he had been to the pleasure quarters again. "Jiang Yun, you spent 1,000,000 taels of silver to exchange for a divorce from me? You are really my good wife." The word wife rarely came out of the marquis' mouth. But interestingly, I am no longer the wife of the marquis. "Marquis, let's part ways amicably." I was about to turn and leave when the marquis tightly hugged me from behind. "Yuner, don't leave. It's all my fault. Don't go." The smell of alcohol from the marquis was overwhelming. "This is the imperial decree. Jiang Yun. How can you be so domineering? You never asked me what I wanted. At that time I didn't want to get married, but you insisted on having the emperor issue a decree to force us to marry. Now I don't want a divorce, but you are using the imperial decree to force me to divorce. Why is that?" Yes, I never asked for the marquis' opinion. But if a girl's feelings have been shown so clearly, is there a need for more words? If you don't like it, just refuse outright. Why keep indulging and teasing over and over again? "Marquis, this is the imperial decree. You should call me Princess Su Yuan." The marquis' eyes were bloodshot, and he didn't say anything more, walking away step by step. Stone, looking at the leaving marquis, his eyes filled with tears. "Madam, the marquis has always liked you. The marquis only drinks and listens to music in the pleasure quarters. He doesn't really like Miss Bailu. He just wanted to make a test." After she entered the marquis, the marquis never set foot in the Qiushui pavilion again, but often lingered in front of your Lanua pavilion. The marquis doesn't hate you. It's just that the marquis is free-spirited and doesn't like to be bound. Why don't you understand the marquis' feelings? I looked at Stone, my gaze indifferent. Now your marquis is completely free. It is widely said that Princess Su Yuan is deeply loved by the Empress Dowager and the Emperor. She travels across the country alone on horseback, truly a heroine among women. There are hundreds of branches of Su Yuan Zhai, and half of the country's wealth is in the princess' hands. Princess Su Yuan not only opened restaurants, but also set up porridge shops for the displaced people, and established schools, shelters, and places to take in and educate orphans, which became a great act of kindness in the eyes of the common people. "Miss, the Empress Dowager's letter says that although Jin Zhong's cooking tastes exactly the same as yours, she still misses the days when you were there and urges you to return to the palace soon. Jin Zhong was left in the palace at that time because he was reliable and willing to learn, so I taught him everything I knew. After I left, with Jin Zhong's skill, the Empress Dowager's meals would not be too different." "Hu Tao, is there any other news?" Hu Tao looked embarrassed. "About the marquis, the former concubine Bai Lu was found to be a spy planted in the marquis and has been executed. The marquis was demoted to a commoner for not discovering the true identity of the concubine in time, and he indulges in drunkenness every day. The marquis has not remarried to this day, and there are no concubines in his family. However, he has developed a habit of going to the pleasure quarters and asking the girls there to dress as men to drink with him. Stone also sent a letter to you, saying that the freedom that his marquis loves the most has now become your shadow in his heart. The marquis no longer desires freedom, but misses the moments spent with you. Because you are deeply rooted in the marquis' heart, he will never be free again. When people leave, tea cools, and nostalgia is useless. The young Jiang who once disguised herself as a servant, the Jiang who deeply loved the marquis, because of the marquis' ruthless knife in the previous life, can never return. I looked towards the northeast. Hu Tao, it's time to go back to the palace to see the Empress Dowager. I miss the Empress Dowager, and I miss my mother too.